Hello and welcome to the Quiet Science channel. I'm so glad you found your way here. Maybe you had a long day. Perhaps your mind is restless with questions about who you are. Or maybe you're simply drawn to the mysteries that live at the intersection of science and the deeply human. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. You've got nothing to do but rest. Let your mind settle into a comfortable rhythm, your breathing slow and steady, and your thoughts drift like leaves on a gentle stream. Because tonight, we're exploring something profound, something that touches the very core of what it means to be human. We're going to wander through memory, time, and that elusive thing we sometimes call the soul. Three concepts so intertwined that to speak of one is to invoke the others. We'll travel through the labyrinth of the brain, where memories are born and stored, through the strange landscape of temporal perception, where seconds stretch and compress like rubber bands, and into the philosophical territory where science meets the eternal questions about consciousness and self. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you. Other parts might resonate with experiences you've had but never quite found words for. And through it all, we'll maintain that gentle curiosity, that willingness to sit with mystery while also appreciating what science has revealed. And just before we begin, if these calm, curious explorations help you unwind or give you a quiet way to end your day, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too, one thoughtful soul at a time. Your support means everything, and it allows us to continue creating these deep dives into the questions that matter. Now, let's begin. The nature of memory, where experience becomes story. Close your eyes for a moment and think of your earliest memory. Perhaps it's a fragment, a flash of color or sound, a feeling without clear context. Maybe it's more complete, a scene you can almost step back into. Whatever it is, that memory, that preserved moment from your past, is not stored like a photograph in some dusty archive of your mind. It's something far more remarkable and far more fragile. Memory is not a recording. It's not a video file tucked away in the filing cabinets of your brain, waiting pristinely for retrieval. Memory is a reconstruction, an act of creation that happens anew each time you remember. And at the heart of this extraordinary process sits a small, seahorse-shaped structure buried deep in your temporal lobes, the hippocampus. The hippocampus is approximately 1/3 the size of a gumball, yet this tiny region is crucial for transforming fleeting experiences into lasting memories. Without it, you cannot form new memories about facts or events. You cannot remember what day it is, where you parked your car this morning, or the names of people you met yesterday. You would live in an eternal present, disconnected from your own past, unable to project yourself into any imagined future. The story of how we learned this is both tragic and illuminating. In 1953, a young man named Henry Molaison, known for decades simply as HM, underwent an experimental surgery to treat his severe epilepsy. The surgeon, William Scoville, removed most of HM's hippocampus, along with surrounding structures in both hemispheres of his brain. The seizures indeed diminished, but HM paid a devastating price. He could no longer form new long-term memories. HM could carry on a conversation, remember things for a few minutes by constantly rehearsing them in his mind, and recall events from his childhood and early adulthood. But ask him 5 minutes later what you had discussed, and he would have no memory of the conversation ever taking place. Every person he met was a stranger, every day a surprise, every moment erased almost as quickly as it occurred. He lived until he was 82 years old, trapped in what must have felt like a perpetual now, a man without the ability to build new memories, and therefore, in many ways, without a continuously evolving self. HM's tragedy became neuroscience's teacher. Through studying him, researchers discovered that memory is not a single, unified thing. There are different types of memory served by different brain systems. The hippocampus, they learned, is essential for explicit or declarative memory, the conscious recollection of facts and events. But HM could still learn new motor skills, even though he couldn't remember the learning sessions themselves. His procedural memory, governed by structures like the basal ganglia and cerebellum, remained intact. This distinction between knowing that and knowing how revolutionized our understanding of memory. You can know how to ride a bicycle without being able to articulate the physics of balance and momentum. You can acquire skills and habits unconsciously, while explicit memories of faces, places, and personal experiences require the conscious machinery of the hippocampus. Within the hippocampus, a complex choreography unfolds every time you form a memory. The structure isn't uniform. It's composed of several interconnected regions, each with specialized functions. The dentate gyrus processes spatial information and helps you make decisions about your environment. The hippocampus proper, with its regions known as CA1, CA2, CA3, and CA4, works to form memories, then organize and store them. The subiculum collects information from the hippocampus and sends messages to other parts of your brain to aid in memory retrieval. And the entorhinal cortex serves as a critical gateway, a pathway for information flowing to and from the hippocampus. But the hippocampus doesn't work alone. Memory formation involves a vast distributed network spanning multiple brain regions. When you experience something worthy of remembering, sensory information first arrives at various cortical areas. Visual details are processed in the occipital lobe, sounds in the temporal regions, physical sensations in the parietal areas. This raw sensory data is temporarily transcribed by neurons in the cortex, then travels to the hippocampus. Here's where something fascinating happens. The hippocampus acts like a conductor, coordinating the various sensory streams into a unified experience. It binds together the where and the what and the when of an experience, creating what neuroscientists call a contextual representation. Special proteins work to strengthen the cortical synaptic connections, gradually consolidating the memory. Research has shown that memories are actually formed simultaneously in two places, the hippocampus and in the long-term storage location in the brain's cortex. But these twin memories don't mature at the same rate. The hippocampal version becomes active quickly, while the cortical memory remains silent for about 2 weeks before reaching full maturity. During this time, the hippocampus essentially teaches the cortex, replaying the memory during sleep and quiet rest, strengthening the cortical connections until the memory can stand on its own. This process of memory consolidation happens largely while you sleep. During certain stages of sleep, particularly slow-wave sleep, the hippocampus replays the day's experiences to the cortex in a sort of overnight filing system, transferring temporary records into more permanent storage. This is why sleep is so crucial for learning and why pulling an all-nighter before an exam is ultimately counterproductive. You're not giving your brain the time it needs to properly consolidate what you've studied. The landscape of memory extends far beyond simple facts and events. Emotional experiences are tagged differently, marked as significant by the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure that assigns emotional weight to memories. This is why emotionally charged events, whether joyful or traumatic, tend to be remembered more vividly than neutral ones. The amygdala essentially tells the hippocampus, "This matters. Remember this." When you recall a memory, especially an emotional one, you're not just retrieving information, you're partially reliving the experience. Brain imaging studies show that remembering activates many of the same neural regions that were active during the original experience. Remember biting into a lemon, and areas of your taste cortex light up. Recall a frightening moment, and your amygdala responds as if to present danger. But here's something that might unsettle you. Every time you remember something, you're also changing that memory. Retrieval is not a passive process. When a memory is recalled, it enters a labile state, temporarily vulnerable to modification before being restored, a process called reconsolidation. New information present at the time of recall can be woven into the memory. Your current emotional state, your present beliefs and expectations, the very act of putting the memory into words, all of these can subtly alter the memory itself. This means that your most cherished memories, the ones you've recalled and recounted many times, might be the ones that have drifted furthest from the original experience. Each retelling polishes certain details while others fade. Elements get added, often without your awareness. The memory becomes less a faithful record and more a story you've refined over time, shaped by who you are now as much as by who you were then. This isn't a flaw in the system. It's a feature. The brain is not designed to be a perfect recorder of the past. It's designed to help you navigate the present and prepare for the future. Memories are tools for prediction, for learning, for maintaining relationships, for constructing a coherent sense of self across time. They don't need to be perfectly accurate to serve these functions. They need to be useful. And yet, this reconstruction can lead to errors, sometimes profound ones. False memories, memories of events that never happened, can be implanted with surprising ease. Researchers have demonstrated that through suggestion and imagination exercises, people can come to vividly remember events from their childhood that family members confirm never occurred. They remember getting lost in a shopping mall, being frightened by an animal, having experiences that seem real, because the brain creates the same neural patterns, whether it's remembering something that happened or something that's been vividly imagined. The implications are sobering. Eyewitness testimony, once considered the gold standard of evidence, is now understood to be remarkably unreliable. Our memories of where we were and what we were doing during significant events can be contaminated by later exposure to news reports and others' accounts. We can misattribute the source of information, remembering something we imagined or dreamed as if it were real. This fragility of memory raises profound questions. If our memories are not faithful records, if they're constantly being reconstructed and modified, what does that mean for personal identity? If the story you tell about yourself is built on memories that may be partly fabricated or distorted, who are you really? We'll return to these questions. For now, simply appreciate the marvel of it. Your brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, and the connections between them, the synapses, number in the hundreds of trillions. Memories are encoded in the pattern and strength of these connections. Every experience subtly rewires you. Every memory, true or false, complete or fragmented, contributes to the vast, dynamic network that generates your thoughts, your reactions, your sense of continuous existence. You are, in a very real sense, made of memories. They are the substance from which your psychological self is constructed. Without them, you would not recognize your own face in the mirror. You would not know your own name. You would be unmoored from time itself, unable to distinguish past from present, or to imagine any future. Memory is not just something you have, it is, in many ways, what you are. The architecture of remembering, building experience. Let's go deeper into the architecture of remembering, into the mechanisms that allow a fleeting moment to become a lasting part of you. Because understanding how memories form is to understand how you become who you are. The process begins with attention. In every moment, your senses are bombarded with information: sights, sounds, sensations, smells. Only a fraction of this sensory data receives conscious attention, and only what you attend to has a chance of being encoded into memory. Attention is the gateway, the filter that determines what will be processed deeply enough to potentially become a lasting memory. This is why you can drive home on autopilot and arrive with almost no memory of the journey. The sensory information was there. Your eyes saw the road, your hands turned the wheel. But your attention was elsewhere, perhaps on a conversation, or a problem, or a daydream. Without attention, there's minimal encoding, and without encoding, there's nothing to remember later. Once attention is secured, the encoding process begins in earnest. This involves a cascade of biochemical events, starting with the activation of receptors on neurons in the hippocampus. Glutamate, the brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitter, binds to specialized receptors known as NMDA receptors. This triggers an influx of calcium ions into the neuron, which in turn activates a series of enzymes and signaling pathways. These biochemical cascades lead to changes in the strength of synaptic connections. Neurons that fire together during an experience strengthen their connections, a phenomenon summarized by the phrase, "Neurons that fire together, wire together." This synaptic strengthening, called long-term potentiation, is believed to be a cellular basis of learning and memory. But it's not just about making connections stronger. The formation of lasting memories also requires the synthesis of new proteins. About an hour after a significant learning experience, genes in the neuron's nucleus are activated, leading to the production of proteins that physically alter the structure of synapses. Some synapses grow larger, sprout new connections, or become more efficient at transmitting signals. This is why disrupting protein synthesis within a critical window after learning can prevent memories from forming. The hippocampus orchestrates this initial encoding, but the memory doesn't stay there permanently. Over time, through a process called systems consolidation, the memory becomes increasingly independent of the hippocampus and more dependent on cortical networks. This transfer happens gradually, taking anywhere from days to years, depending on the nature of the memory. During systems consolidation, particularly during sleep, the hippocampus replays the patterns of neural activity that occurred during the original experience. These replay events, detected as brief, high-frequency bursts of neural activity called sharp wave ripples, occur hundreds of times during sleep. Each replay strengthens the cortical traces, effectively teaching the cortex the pattern until it can maintain the memory on its own. This is why very old memories can survive even severe damage to the hippocampus, while more recent memories are lost. The patient HM, for instance, retained memories from his childhood and early adulthood, but could not form new long-term memories or remember events from the years immediately preceding his surgery. The oldest memories had been fully consolidated into cortical networks, while newer ones were still hippocampus dependent. The role of emotions in memory formation cannot be overstated. When you experience something emotionally arousing, whether positive or negative, your amygdala springs into action. This structure, involved in processing emotions, particularly fear, sends signals that modulate memory consolidation in the hippocampus and other brain regions. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are released, which enhance the encoding and consolidation of emotional memories. This makes evolutionary sense. Emotionally significant events are often ones we need to remember, threats to avoid, resources to seek, social bonds to maintain. A memory system that prioritizes emotional experiences is one that helps an organism survive and thrive. But this emotional enhancement of memory has a dark side. Traumatic experiences can be remembered with a vividness and persistence that becomes pathological. In post-traumatic stress disorder, the memory of a traumatic event doesn't fade normally. It intrudes unbidden, triggered by cues in the environment. The hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, regions involved in contextualizing and regulating emotional memories, show altered function in PTSD. The memory remains raw, unprocessed, perpetually present rather than safely in the past. Even in the absence of trauma, emotional memories are remembered differently than neutral ones. Studies have shown that emotional arousal enhances memory for the central, emotionally salient aspects of an experience, but can actually impair memory for peripheral details. You might vividly remember the face of someone who startled you, but have no recollection of what they were wearing or what was in the background. Memory is also profoundly influenced by meaning and organization. Information that is deeply processed, connected to existing knowledge, organized into meaningful patterns, is much more likely to be remembered than information processed shallowly. This is why rote memorization is so inefficient. Simply repeating something over and over engages minimal processing. But if you elaborate on the material, ask questions about it, relate it to things you already know, generate examples, you create a rich web of associations that makes the memory more robust and more accessible. The act of retrieval itself strengthens memory. Testing yourself, actively trying to recall information rather than passively reviewing it, is one of the most effective learning strategies. Each successful retrieval strengthens the neural pathways involved, making future retrieval easier. This is called the testing effect, and it's one of the most reliable findings in cognitive psychology. But retrieval is also constructive. When you remember, you don't simply access a stored file. You reconstruct the memory from fragments distributed across different brain regions. Your current context, your expectations, your mood, all influence this reconstruction. If someone asks you about a past event and their question contains a subtle suggestion, that suggestion can become woven into your reconstructed memory. The pioneering memory researcher Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated this dramatically in her studies of eyewitness memory. In one famous experiment, participants watched a video of a car accident. Later, some were asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? While others were asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? Simply changing the verb affected participants' memories. Those who heard smashed estimated higher speeds and were more likely to later claim they had seen broken glass in the video, even though there was none. This malleability extends even to childhood memories. Through repeated suggestions and imagination exercises, researchers have implanted entirely false memories in participants, convincing them they had experiences in childhood that family members confirm never happened. The false memories aren't distinguished subjectively from real ones. They feel just as vivid, carry the same sense of certainty. Why is memory so vulnerable to distortion? Because reconstruction is efficient. Instead of storing every detail of every experience, which would require enormous neural resources, the brain stores the gist, the general sense of what happened, along with some specific details. During recall, it fills in the gaps based on schemas, general knowledge about how events typically unfold. This usually works well. If you remember going to a restaurant, your brain might fill in details like there were tables and chairs, even if you don't explicitly remember noticing them, because that's what restaurants have. But this same process can lead to errors when suggestions or imagination provide plausible details that fit the schema but weren't actually part of the original experience. The brain incorporates them smoothly into the reconstruction, and you have no way to distinguish the fabricated from the genuine. All of this might seem to undermine the reliability of memory, and to some extent it does. But consider what memory is for. It's not primarily for perfect preservation of the past. It's for guiding present and future behavior. For this purpose, the gist is often what matters. You don't need to remember every detail of a dangerous situation to benefit from having learned to avoid similar situations. You don't need perfect recall of a conversation to maintain a relationship, just a sense of what was said and how it made you feel. Memory is pragmatic, not archival. It serves the living organism's needs, which are to adapt, to learn, to maintain social bonds, to construct a coherent sense of self across time. And for all its imperfections, it does these jobs remarkably well. Still, the reconstructive nature of memory raises deep questions about truth and identity. If your memories are not perfect records, if they're stories you've been telling and modifying over the years, then what are you remembering? The event as it happened, or your previous memory of the event, or some blend of both, layered with interpretations and emotions from multiple moments of recall? Perhaps memory is less about accuracy and more about meaning. The memories you cherish and return to frequently are not important because they're precise records. They're important because of what they mean to you, the role they play in your sense of who you are. They're the touchstones of your personal narrative, the experiences that define your values, your relationships, your understanding of your place in the world. In this light, the fact that memories are reconstructed and modified doesn't diminish them. It reveals them as living things, dynamic and responsive, changing as you change, reflecting not just who you were, but who you are becoming. Your memories grow with you. They are rewritten by each version of yourself that recalls them, carrying forward not a fixed past, but an evolving understanding of what that past means. This is both beautiful and unsettling. Beautiful because it means you are not trapped by your past. Your understanding of your own history can change as you grow and gain new perspectives. Unsettling because it means there's no solid ground, no bedrock of unchanging truth about your own life. There's only the story you're telling now, built from memories that are themselves stories, layered and revised, true in essence if not in every detail. But perhaps that's okay. Perhaps perfect memory would be a curse. There's a rare condition called highly superior autobiographical memory, or hyperthymesia, in which individuals can recall virtually every day of their lives in detail. They can tell you what they ate for breakfast on a random Tuesday 20 years ago, what the weather was like, who they saw. It sounds like a superpower, but those who have it often describe it as a burden. Negative memories don't fade. Petty slights and embarrassments remain vivid. The mind is cluttered with trivial details. Forgetting, it turns out, is as important as remembering. Forgetting allows you to generalize, to extract the essential from the specific, to let go of what's no longer relevant. It keeps your memory system manageable, prioritizing what matters. Without forgetting, you would be like Borges's character Funes the Memorious, who, after an accident, could forget nothing and was paralyzed by the sheer weight of undiscriminated detail. So memory is a balance, remembering what's important, forgetting what's not, and sometimes getting it wrong. It's a system evolved not for perfect preservation, but for adaptive function, for learning and planning and identity and relationship. It's flawed and malleable, but it's yours. Your memories, true or embellished or entirely imagined, are what make you you. They're the substance of your inner life, the foundation of your sense of continuous existence through time. Time as the brain perceives it, the present that never was now. Let's turn our attention to time itself, that strange dimension in which all experience unfolds. Time seems like the most fundamental aspect of reality. We divide our lives by it, organize our days around it, measure age and change through it. And yet, the way we experience time, our subjective sense of its passage, is not a direct perception of some objective external flow. It is, like so much else, a construction of the brain. There is no single clock ticking in your head, no master timekeeper marking the seconds. Instead, time perception emerges from multiple brain systems working together, each handling different temporal scales, each contributing to your overall sense of duration and sequence. For very short durations, milliseconds to a few seconds, time perception is handled largely by sensory systems and specialized neural circuits. In the visual system, for instance, neurons are tuned to detect motion and change over brief timescales, allowing you to perceive events as they unfold rapidly before your eyes. In the auditory system, precise temporal processing allows you to distinguish the subtle timing differences that make speech comprehensible and music rhythmically meaningful. For slightly longer intervals, seconds to minutes, a different system comes into play, involving a distributed network of brain regions including the prefrontal cortex, basal ganglia, and cerebellum. This network appears to track time in a more explicit way, allowing you to estimate durations, to know when enough time has passed to take an action, to sequence events in working memory. One influential model suggests that this system works something like an internal clock, with pacemaker neurons emitting regular signals that accumulate in a counter. When you're asked to estimate how much time has passed, your brain essentially reads this counter. The more pulses have accumulated, the longer the estimated duration. But this clock is not rigidly mechanical. It's influenced by attention, emotion, arousal, and context. When you're paying close attention to time, to the ticking of a clock, or the countdown of a timer, time seems to pass more slowly. Your internal clock accumulates more pulses per unit of objective time because you're attending to each moment. Conversely, when you're absorbed in an engaging activity, your attention is diverted from time itself. Fewer pulses accumulate, and afterward, it seems like hardly any time passed at all. Emotion also powerfully affects time perception. Fear, in particular, seems to stretch time. People who've experienced sudden danger, a car accident, a fall, often report that the event seemed to happen in slow motion. Some neuroscientists have hypothesized that this isn't because time literally slowed, but because the intense emotional arousal causes the amygdala to lay down a particularly dense memory of the event. When you later recall it, the richness of detail makes it seem like it must have lasted longer than it actually did. However, studies using more controlled methods suggest that time does subjectively expand during frightening experiences, not just in retrospect. The heightened state of arousal appears to increase the rate at which your internal clock ticks, making you more aware of brief intervals, effectively stretching your experience of time. Pleasant emotions can also dilate time, though perhaps through a different mechanism. When you're experiencing joy or wonder, you may attend more fully to the present moment, savoring it, which creates a richer encoding and can make the moment feel extended. In contrast, boredom and impatience make time drag because you're hyper-aware of its passage, repeatedly checking the clock, each glance confirming that less time has elapsed than you hoped. Age, too, affects how we perceive time. Most people report that time seems to speed up as they get older. Childhood summers felt endless, but now weeks and months blur together. There are several theories for this. One suggests that as we age, each unit of time represents a smaller proportion of our total life lived. A year to a 10-year-old is 10% of their life, but to a 50-year-old, it's only 2%. Proportionally, it feels shorter. Another theory proposes that novelty affects time perception. Children are constantly encountering new experiences, each one demanding attention and being encoded richly in memory. Adults, living more routine lives, have fewer novel experiences. Familiar activities require less attention and are encoded less deeply, so looking back, there's less memory content, making the time seem to have passed quickly. A third idea relates to the slowing of neural processing with age. As neurons become less efficient, the rate at which we process information decreases. It's been suggested that this could make external time seem to accelerate relative to our internal processing time, analogous to how a computer running slowly makes everything else seem too fast. Whatever the reason, the acceleration of subjective time with age is widely experienced, and it can be disconcerting, creating a sense that life is slipping away faster with each passing year. Some researchers suggest that seeking out novel experiences, learning new skills, traveling to new places can help counter this effect by creating richer memories that make time feel more expansive. The brain's temporal systems also create the illusion of a unified present moment. In reality, different sensory signals arrive at the brain at different speeds. Light travels faster than sound, and visual processing is faster than tactile processing. If you see something happening a distance away and hear the sound it makes, the light reaches your eyes before the sound reaches your ears, and yet you perceive them as simultaneous. This is because the brain holds sensory information in a brief buffer, waiting for slower signals to arrive, then integrates them into a unified perceptual moment. Neuroscientist David Eagleman describes this as a 1/10 of a second window, a brief delay in which the brain compiles data from various senses to create a coherent present. This means that your conscious awareness is always slightly behind reality, experiencing the past as if it were the present. There's also a perceptual phenomenon called chronostasis, a temporal illusion where the first moment of a new sensory experience appears extended in time. The most well-known example is the stopped clock illusion. Glance at an analog clock with a second hand, and the first tick after you look often seems to last longer than subsequent ticks. This happens because your brain is essentially backdating the image, filling in the time during the saccade, the rapid eye movement you made to look at the clock, with the first clear image that arrives. The result is that first second feels stretched. These illusions reveal that time perception is not a passive registration of objective duration. It's an active construction, a best guess by the brain about how events are unfolding in time. And this construction is flexible, shaped by what you're doing, what you're feeling, what you're attending to. Even the direction of time, the distinction between past and future, is something the brain constructs. Physically, at the microscopic level, many fundamental laws of physics are time-symmetric. They work the same forward or backward. But psychologically, time has an unmistakable arrow. You remember the past, not the future. Causes precede effects. Entropy increases. We age, we don't grow younger. This psychological arrow of time is tied to memory and to the fact that our brains are prediction machines. We use the past to predict the future. Memory gives us a database of experiences to draw on when anticipating what might happen next. Without memory, there would be no subjective sense of time passing, no before and after, only an eternal, unchanging now. Interestingly, certain brain regions appear specialized for temporal processing in the realm of memory. Researchers have discovered time cells in the hippocampus, neurons that fire at specific moments during an experience, creating a temporal map of events. These cells help you remember not just what happened, but when it happened in relation to other events. In the entorhinal cortex, adjacent to the hippocampus, scientists have found cells that code for episodic time, creating a sort of timestamp for memories. This temporal coding means that your brain can reconstruct the order of events, can situate each memory within the broader context of your life story. But this temporal mapping is not perfect. Memory's timeline is not linear. Recent events are generally remembered more clearly than distant ones, but certain periods of life, particularly late adolescence and early adulthood, have a disproportionate number of memories, a phenomenon called the reminiscence bump. This may be because those years are filled with formative experiences, many of them novel and emotionally significant. Moreover, the subjective distance to a memory doesn't correspond neatly to objective time. A vivid, emotionally charged memory from years ago can feel more recent than a mundane event from last week. The past is not arranged like a calendar in your mind. It's a jumble, with some events feeling close and others distant, organized more by significance and association than by strict chronology. In certain neurological conditions, time perception can be severely disrupted. Patients with Parkinson's disease, which involves degeneration of dopamine-producing neurons in the basal ganglia, often have difficulty with timing tasks. They may struggle to estimate durations or to produce rhythmic movements with consistent timing. This suggests that dopamine plays a critical role in the brain's timing mechanisms. In other conditions, like schizophrenia, people may experience disturbances in their sense of time, feeling that time is moving at an abnormal pace or that events are happening out of order. These distortions can contribute to the confusion and disorientation characteristic of psychotic states. Even for those of us without neurological disorders, time can feel profoundly strange under certain circumstances. During extreme boredom, time seems to nearly stop. In states of flow, when you're completely absorbed in an activity that matches your skill level with just the right challenge, hours can pass in what feels like minutes. Under the influence of certain drugs, particularly hallucinogens, time perception can be radically altered, moments stretching into seeming infinities. All of this reveals that our sense of time is not a direct reading of some external temporal metric. It's a model, a simulation created by the brain to help us navigate through sequences of events, to coordinate our actions with the world, to maintain a coherent narrative of our lives. And like all models, it has its quirks and limitations. It's influenced by attention and emotion. It's tied to memory and to the construction of self. It creates illusions, makes errors, can be fooled. And yet, for all that, it usually works well enough for our purposes, allowing us to move through the world with a sense of when things happened, how long they lasted, what might come next. Time, in the end, is not what happens to you. It's something you experience, something generated by the activity of your brain as it processes the flow of sensory information and integrates it with memory and expectation. You don't live in time so much as you create it, moment by moment, as your neurons fire in their intricate patterns, weaving past and present into the ongoing fabric of experience. Autobiographical memory and the self. The stories. We are now. We arrive at something deeply personal, the question of how memory creates and maintains your sense of self. Who are you? Not in some abstract philosophical sense, but concretely, experientially. What makes you the same person today that you were yesterday, last year, in childhood? The answer, to a large extent, is memory. Specifically, autobiographical memory, the collection of personal experiences and self-knowledge that forms your psychological history. This is not just a repository of facts about your past. It's the substance from which your identity is woven. Autobiographical memory encompasses both episodic memories, specific events you can recall with a sense of mentally traveling back in time, and semantic self-knowledge, general facts about your life, the schools you attended, jobs you've held, people who matter to you. Together, these create a sense of continuity, the feeling that despite all the changes you've undergone, there's a thread of identity running through your life. This sense of continuity is not automatic. It's actively constructed by the brain, particularly by a network of regions including the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and of course, the hippocampus. These areas work together to maintain what researchers call the self-memory system, integrating memories with your current goals, values, and self-concept. Think about it. Right now, you have a sense of who you are, your personality, your preferences, your relationships, your history. This present self is informed by what you remember about your past, but it also influences which memories you can access and how you interpret them. Psychologists have found that your current self-views, beliefs, and goals shape your recollections. You tend to remember experiences that are consistent with your current identity, and you may reinterpret past events in light of your present understanding. This bidirectional relationship between memory and identity means that the self is not a fixed entity with a fixed history. It's a dynamic construction, constantly being revised. You tell your life story to yourself and to others, and in the telling, you shape both the story and yourself. Certain memories carry particular weight in this process. These are what psychologists call self-defining memories, highly vivid, emotionally charged recollections of experiences that feel central to your sense of who you are. They might be moments of achievement or failure, experiences of love or loss, turning points when your life took a new direction. When you recall a self-defining memory, you're not just remembering an event. You're reconnecting with a version of yourself, affirming certain aspects of your identity, reinforcing values and beliefs. These memories provide continuity, linking your present self to past selves, creating a narrative arc that gives your life meaning and coherence. But not all memories serve identity equally well. Research has shown that the ability to recall specific, detailed autobiographical memories is important for psychological well-being. People who tend to recall memories in an overly general way, for instance, I've had lots of arguments with my parents, rather than recalling specific instances, often struggle with depression and other emotional difficulties. This phenomenon, called overgeneral memory, seems to interfere with several important functions. Specific memories help you solve problems by reminding you of similar situations you've navigated successfully in the past. They help you regulate emotions by allowing you to distance yourself from negative experiences or savor positive ones. And they help you maintain relationships by providing concrete shared experiences to reference. When memory is too general, these functions are compromised. You can't draw on specific examples to guide present behavior. You can't separate one negative experience from a pattern of negativity. You lose the rich detail that makes your personal history feel real and meaningful. Conversely, being able to recall specific, vivid memories contributes to a strong, coherent sense of self. It allows you to see your own growth and change over time, to appreciate how different experiences have shaped you. It provides material for the life narrative you construct, the story you tell about how you became who you are. This life narrative is not just a recounting of events, it's an interpretation, a coherent story with themes, turning points, characters, a sense of how different chapters connect. Psychologist Dan McAdams has argued that in modern Western culture, forming this narrative is a key developmental task, particularly in adolescence and young adulthood. You have to make sense of your life, to organize the disparate experiences into a story that explains who you are and where you're going. The stories we tell about ourselves have power. They can be redemptive narratives, stories of overcoming adversity, of growth through challenge. Or they can be contamination narratives, in which good things are spoiled or turned bad. The narrative structure you impose on your life influences your sense of agency, your optimism or pessimism, your resilience in the face of difficulty. And because memory is reconstructive, you have some freedom in how you tell the story. You can emphasize different events, interpret experiences differently, find new meaning in old memories. This is one way that therapy works, helping people to reframe their life narratives, to see themselves and their histories in new, more adaptive ways. But there are limits to this narrative flexibility. You can't simply decide to remember things differently. The constraints of what actually happened and what you've previously encoded shape what's possible. Still, within those constraints, there's interpretive room, space for the present self to make sense of the past in ways that serve current needs. Trauma, however, can shatter the coherence of autobiographical memory and identity. Traumatic experiences often resist integration into the life narrative. They feel alien, as if they happened to someone else. The memory may be fragmented, lacking the normal sense of time and place, replaying intrusively without being processed or resolved. This is partly because during extreme stress, the functioning of the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex can be impaired by stress hormones. The traumatic experience is encoded in a disorganized way, more as sensory fragments and emotional reactions than as a coherent narrative. The memory doesn't get properly contextualized as past, so it intrudes into the present with a vividness and immediacy that feels overwhelming. Recovery from trauma often involves a gradual integration of the traumatic memory into the broader life story. Through retelling in a safe context, the memory can be reprocessed, contextualized as something that happened in the past, that was terrible, but is now over. The fragmented pieces are woven into a narrative that, while painful, no longer hijacks the present. This process can take time, and it's not about forgetting or minimizing what happened. It's about changing the relationship to the memory, allowing it to become part of your history without dominating your present identity. The trauma becomes one chapter in your story, not the whole story. Beyond individual memories, your sense of self also encompasses what's called autobiographical knowledge, more abstract information organized into life periods, general events, and conceptual understandings of who you are. For instance, you might have a life period labeled college years, within which are general event categories like chemistry classes or parties with friends, and within those, specific episodic memories of particular classes or parties. This hierarchical organization helps you navigate your personal past efficiently. When someone asks about your college experience, you don't have to search through every individual memory. You can access the general knowledge and typical examples, drilling down to specific episodes only if needed. Your conceptual self, the abstract understanding of your personality, values, and traits, sits at the top of this hierarchy. This is the part of you that can complete sentences like, "I am someone who," or "I believe that." These self-concepts are informed by your autobiographical memory, but they're also more stable and abstract, allowing for a sense of continuity, even as specific memories fade or change. Interestingly, some autobiographical memories persist that are older than your sense of self. There are stars in your memory's night sky that formed before the galaxy of your identity fully coalesced. Young children begin forming episodic memories before they have a clear sense of themselves as continuous individuals existing through time. The emergence of a narrative self, the ability to locate oneself in a personal timeline, develops gradually through childhood. Most adults can't remember much from before the age of 3 or 4, a phenomenon called childhood amnesia. There are several theories about why this occurs. One is that the brain structures critical for encoding and retrieving autobiographical memories, particularly the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, are still maturing in early childhood. Another is that without language and a developed sense of self, early experiences are encoded differently and are difficult to translate into the narrative form that later memory uses. Whatever the reason, the upshot is that your conscious personal history doesn't extend back to your birth. There's a gap, a period of your life that's largely blank, known to you only through photos and stories others have told you. And yet those early years shaped you profoundly. The attachment patterns formed with caregivers, the early learning, the gradual emergence of consciousness, all of that happened in a time you can't consciously remember. As you age, new challenges to autobiographical memory emerge. Older adults often report that more remote memories, particularly from adolescence and early adulthood, are clearer and more numerous than memories from middle age. This is the reminiscence bump we mentioned earlier. Those formative years, filled with first experiences, identity exploration, and significant life events, are encoded more deeply and resist forgetting. But recent memories can become harder to form as the brain ages. The hippocampus can shrink, neural processing slows, and the mechanisms of encoding and consolidation become less efficient. This is a normal part of aging, though in some individuals it progresses to more serious conditions like mild cognitive impairment or Alzheimer's disease. In Alzheimer's, the progressive degeneration of neurons, particularly in the hippocampus and cortex, leads to profound memory loss. Typically, recent memories are lost first, while older memories persist longer, though eventually even those fade. As autobiographical memory unravels, so does the sense of self. People with advanced Alzheimer's may not recognize family members, may not remember their own life history, may lose the ability to form any new memories at all. This tragic loss underscores just how dependent identity is on memory. Without the ability to remember your own past, to recognize familiar faces and places, to form new experiences, and integrate them into an ongoing narrative, the self becomes untethered, fragmented, eventually absent. For those of us fortunate enough to have intact memory, it's easy to take for granted. We don't notice the constant work the brain is doing to maintain continuity, to update our self-concept, to retrieve relevant memories, to suppress intrusive or irrelevant ones. But this work is essential to our subjective experience of being a coherent person, persisting through time. Your memories are not just records of where you've been, they're the ground on which you stand. They inform your decisions, shape your relationships, define your values. They are the answer to the question, who am I? Not a complete answer, of course. You are more than your memories, but without them, the question would have no meaning. Consciousness and self-awareness, the mystery of being. Let's now consider consciousness itself, that most intimate and yet most elusive aspect of being human. Right now, you are conscious. You're aware of these words, perhaps aware of sensations in your body, sounds around you, the stream of thoughts flowing through your mind. There's something it's like to be you, a subjective experience, an inner life. This is consciousness in its most basic sense, the fact that you are not just processing information like a computer, but experiencing it, feeling it from a first-person perspective. Philosophers call this phenomenal consciousness, the quality of subjective experience, or what it's like to be something. And then there's a more specific form of consciousness, self-consciousness, or self-awareness. The fact that you're not just aware, but aware of yourself, aware that you are aware. You can reflect on your own thoughts, observe your own emotions, consider your own existence. You have a sense of being a self, a subject of experience, an I that persists through time. How does this arise from the physical activity of neurons? This is what philosopher David Chalmers has called the hard problem of consciousness. Science has made impressive progress understanding the neural correlates of consciousness, the brain activity associated with various mental states. We can identify which brain regions are active when you see red, feel pain, make a decision. We can even predict to some degree what you're experiencing based on patterns of neural activity. But explaining how and why this physical activity gives rise to subjective experience, that remains deeply mysterious. Why is there something it's like to be a brain processing information? Why isn't it all just unconscious computation? Why does consciousness exist at all? There are many theories, none fully satisfying. Some philosophers and neuroscientists embrace materialism or physicalism, the view that consciousness is entirely a product of physical processes in the brain. On this view, there's nothing beyond the neurons, the synapses, the electrochemical signals. Consciousness is what a sufficiently complex information processing system does, an emergent property of neural activity. Others argue for dualism in various forms, the idea that consciousness involves something non-physical, a mind or soul that's distinct from the brain, even if it interacts with it. This view, with roots in Descartes and in many religious traditions, preserves the intuition that consciousness feels different from matter, but it faces the challenge of explaining how something non-physical could interact with physical neurons. There are also intermediate positions. Some propose that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe, like mass or charge, a property that's present to some degree in all matter, but only becomes complex and self-aware in systems like brains. This is called panpsychism, and while it sounds strange, it's taken seriously by some thinkers as a way to avoid the problem of how consciousness could emerge from non-conscious matter. What does neuroscience tell us? It reveals that consciousness is correlated with specific patterns of brain activity, particularly involving what's called the default mode network, a set of regions including the medial prefrontal cortex posterior cingulate cortex, and parts of the parietal lobe. This network is active when you're at rest, when your mind is wandering, when you're engaged in self-referential thinking. The default mode network seems crucial for the narrative self, the ongoing story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're doing. Damage to key nodes in this network can impair self-awareness and the sense of having a continuous identity. There's also the global workspace theory, which suggests that consciousness arises when information becomes globally available across the brain. Normally, processing in the brain is modular and unconscious, but certain information, if it reaches a threshold of significance, gets broadcast widely, becoming accessible to many brain systems at once. This global broadcasting, the theory suggests, is what we experience as conscious awareness. Another influential theory, integrated information theory, proposes that consciousness is related to the degree of integrated information in a system. The more a system integrates information, the more different states can be distinguished while still maintaining causal connections among parts. The more conscious it is. This theory attempts to quantify consciousness and makes the bold claim that it's not unique to brains. Any system with the right kind of informational integration would be conscious to some degree. These theories differ in their specifics, but they share a focus on integration, on bringing together information from disparate sources into a unified experience. Your conscious experience right now is unified. You don't experience vision in one place and hearing in another. You experience a single, cohesive world, even though the underlying neural processing is distributed across many regions. This binding of information into a unified, conscious experience is itself a puzzle. How do the separate streams of processing come together? There's no single place in the brain where it all happens, no Cartesian theater where experiences are projected. Instead, consciousness seems to be more like a global state, a pattern of activity that involves many regions working in concert. Self-awareness, the specific consciousness of being a self, adds another layer. It involves regions like the medial prefrontal cortex, which is active when you think about yourself, when you consider your own traits, preferences, emotions. Damage to this region can lead to changes in self-awareness, though the effects are often subtle. There's also a distinction between different levels of self-awareness. The minimal self is the basic sense of being an embodied agent, the feeling that you have a body, that you're the one experiencing and acting. This minimal self may not require much cortical machinery. It's more primal, tied to sensory integration and motor control. The narrative self, on the other hand, is richer and more conceptual. It's the sense of having a biography, a past and a future, a personality and social identity. This narrative self is more dependent on language, memory, and higher-level cognitive functions. It's the self you talk about, the one that has a name and a life story. You can experience the minimal self without much narrative self, as perhaps happens in deep meditation or in certain altered states of consciousness. Conversely, the narrative self can be constructed in memory and language even when immediate awareness is disrupted, as in cases of split-brain patients who confabulate explanations for actions initiated by the disconnected hemisphere. Metacognition, the ability to think about thinking, to monitor and evaluate your own mental states, is a key aspect of self-awareness. You're not just experiencing things. You can notice that you're experiencing them, judge whether a belief is well-founded, assess whether you're confident in a decision. Brain regions involved in metacognition overlap substantially with those involved in memory and self-referential processing, particularly the prefrontal cortex. This makes sense. To evaluate your own mental states, you need to maintain a model of yourself, an understanding of your own tendencies, knowledge, and limitations. This self-model is built from autobiographical memory and is constantly updated based on feedback. Interestingly, the ability to think about others' mental states, what psychologists call theory of mind, uses many of the same brain regions as metacognition. Understanding yourself and understanding others appear to be deeply related capacities, both involving the prefrontal cortex and regions in the parietal and temporal lobes. Young children develop theory of mind gradually. Around age 4 or 5, most children pass tests showing they understand that others can have beliefs different from their own, even false beliefs. This development parallels the maturation of prefrontal cortex and seems tied to the emergence of a more sophisticated self-awareness. In some neurological conditions, self-awareness can be profoundly disrupted. In a syndrome called anosognosia, people are unaware of their own deficits. A stroke patient might be paralyzed on one side but insist they can move normally, confabulating explanations when confronted with evidence to the contrary. This suggests that self-awareness is not simply a matter of having access to information about oneself. It requires specific neural machinery to construct and update a coherent self-model. Similarly, in conditions like schizophrenia, the boundaries of self can become confused. Patients may experience thoughts as being inserted into their minds by external forces, or may feel that their actions are controlled by someone else. The sense of agency, the feeling that you are the author of your own thoughts and actions, is disrupted. This sense of agency, normally so seamless that we don't notice it, turns out to depend on complex interactions between motor systems, sensory feedback, and higher-level monitoring in prefrontal regions. All of this suggests that self-awareness is not a single, indivisible thing. It's multifaceted, involving the integration of bodily sensations, memories, beliefs, emotions, and social information into a coherent model of oneself as an agent existing through time. And it's fragile. It can be disrupted by brain injury, mental illness, drugs, or even just the normal fluctuations of attention and arousal. The self you experience is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic construction, continually rebuilt by neural processes that usually operate smoothly, but can break down or malfunction. This raises a philosophical question that's been debated for centuries. What is the self? Is it something real, a genuine entity, or is it an illusion, a convenient fiction created by the brain? The Buddhist tradition has long held that the self is an illusion, that there's no unchanging essence, no permanent soul. Instead, there's only a constantly changing stream of experiences, perceptions, thoughts, sensations, with no abiding self behind them. This doctrine, called anatta, or non-self, suggests that the sense of being a separate, continuous self is a cognitive construction, not a deep truth. Western philosophy has traditionally been more affirming of the self. Descartes famously argued, "I think, therefore I am," taking the fact of conscious thought as proof of the thinker's existence. But even in the West, the nature of this has been contentious. Is it a soul, a mind, a pattern of memory and personality, a social construct? Neuroscience, with its focus on the brain, tends toward the view that the self is a process rather than a thing. It's what the brain does when it integrates information, maintains autobiographical memory, monitors its own states, and interacts with others. There's no separate soul or ghost in the machine. There's just the complex, self-organizing activity of billions of neurons, And from this activity, the sense of self emerges. This doesn't mean the self is an illusion, exactly. It's real in the sense that the experience is real, the patterns of neural activity are real, the behaviors and relationships that flow from this sense of self are real. But it's not a substance or entity that could exist independent of the brain's ongoing activity. It's more like a pattern, a process, a verb pretending to be a noun. And this process is intimately tied to memory and time. You experience yourself as a continuous being because memory links moments together, because you can recall your past and project yourself into the future. Without memory, as we've seen in cases like HM, the self becomes fragmented, trapped in an eternal present. So consciousness, self-awareness, and identity are all interwoven with memory and time. You are conscious now, aware of this moment, and this awareness is inherently temporal. It has a sense of now that distinguishes itself from the just past and the about to be. You are self-aware, recognizing yourself as the same person who had experiences yesterday and will have experiences tomorrow. And this self-recognition depends on memory, on the ability to retrieve and integrate past experiences into a coherent sense of who you are. The mystery of consciousness remains. We can describe its neural correlates, propose theories, explore how it can be disrupted or altered. But the hard problem, the question of why subjective experience exists at all, remains unanswered. Perhaps it's unanswerable. Perhaps consciousness is so fundamental to our perspective that we can never step outside it enough to fully explain it. But that doesn't diminish the wonder. You are a conscious being. You're aware, not just responding mechanically to stimuli, but experiencing them, feeling them from within. You're self-aware, able to reflect on your own existence, to ponder these very questions. This capacity for awareness, for self-reflection, is perhaps the most remarkable feature of the human mind. It's what allows you to appreciate beauty, to seek meaning, to care about truth. It's what makes you, you. The concept of soul, across disciplines, spirit, mind, and neuron. And now we arrive at the concept that has haunted human thought for millennia. The soul. What is it? Does it exist? And if so, what relationship does it have to the brain, to memory, to consciousness? The word soul carries immense cultural and religious weight. In many traditions, the soul is understood as the immaterial essence of a person, the part that's truly you, distinct from your physical body. It's often associated with consciousness, with moral agency, and crucially, with immortality. The soul is what's thought to persist after death, to potentially be judged, reincarnated, or united with the divine. But the concept of the soul varies widely across cultures and throughout history. In ancient Hebrew texts, the word nephesh, often translated as soul, referred more to the breath of life, to the living being as a whole. It wasn't a separate entity distinct from the body, but rather the animating principle that made the body alive. Greek philosophy, particularly with Plato and Aristotle, developed more dualistic notions. Plato saw the soul as imprisoned in the body, the immortal part of a person that could exist independently and would be freed upon death. The body was base, material, corruptible, while the soul was pure, intellectual, eternal. Aristotle took a different view, seeing the soul as the form of the body, the principle that organizes matter into a living being. The soul, on this view, wasn't a separate substance, but a functional aspect of life. Different levels of soul corresponded to different capacities. The nutritive soul in plants, the sensitive soul in animals, and the rational soul in humans. Christianity absorbed and adapted these Greek ideas. The New Testament and early church fathers developed a theology in which humans possess an immortal soul created by God, which would face judgment and eternity after the body's death. Over the centuries, Christian thinkers like Augustine and Aquinas refined this doctrine, reconciling Greek philosophy with biblical teaching. In Eastern traditions, the concept differs. Hinduism speaks of Atman, the eternal self or soul, which is ultimately identical with Brahman, the universal spirit. The goal of spiritual practice is to realize this identity, to see beyond the illusion of individual separateness. Buddhism, in contrast, explicitly denies the existence of a permanent, unchanging soul. The doctrine of anatta or anatman holds that what we call the self is actually a constantly changing aggregation of physical and mental phenomena. There's no abiding essence, only process, flux, dependent arising. Clinging to the illusion of a permanent self, Buddhism teaches, is a source of suffering. These diverse views share a common concern: understanding the relationship between the material and the immaterial, the body and the consciousness, the transient and the eternal. Their attempts to make sense of the undeniable fact that we are conscious beings who inhabit physical bodies, who experience life subjectively while also being subject to the laws of nature. But what does modern neuroscience have to say about the soul? Can science address such a question? Strictly speaking, science deals with the material, the measurable. If the soul is defined as immaterial, existing outside the physical realm, then it's beyond the reach of empirical investigation. You can't weigh it, observe it under a microscope, or detect it with any instrument. Science can neither prove nor disprove the existence of something immaterial. However, science can investigate the claims often made about the soul. If the soul is said to be the seat of consciousness, memory, personality, and moral agency, then we can ask, are these functions performed by the brain, or is something else required? The evidence overwhelmingly suggests that all these functions depend on the brain. Consciousness, as we've seen, correlates with specific patterns of brain activity. Damage to the brain can impair or eliminate consciousness. Memory is formed, stored, and retrieved through neural processes in the hippocampus and cortex. Personality is shaped by genetics and experience, both of which work through brain development and plasticity. Even moral judgment, once thought to be purely the province of an immaterial soul, has neural correlates. Studies have identified regions in the prefrontal cortex and elsewhere that are active during moral reasoning. Damage to these areas can alter moral behavior, as famously illustrated by the case of Phineas Gage. Gage was a railway foreman in the 1840s who survived an accident in which a large iron rod was driven through his skull, destroying much of his prefrontal cortex. He survived, but his personality changed dramatically. Once responsible and mild-mannered, he became impulsive, irreverent, and unreliable. This case, and many others since, demonstrate that personality and character, the very things that make you you, depend on the physical integrity of the brain. If everything we associate with the soul, consciousness, memory, personality, morality, can be altered or eliminated by changes to the brain, what need is there to posit a separate immaterial soul? This argument has led many neuroscientists and philosophers to reject dualism. If the brain does everything the soul is supposed to do, and if changes to the brain change the very things that constitute your identity, then the soul seems superfluous, an unnecessary hypothesis. Some argue that the soul is simply what we call the complex activity of the brain, not a separate entity, but the emergent process of consciousness and selfhood arising from neural activity. On this view, to speak of the soul is to speak metaphorically or poetically about the subjective, experiential aspect of being a brain. But the concept of emergence is itself philosophically tricky. How does consciousness emerge from neurons? What does it mean for something immaterial, like an experience, to be produced by something material like synaptic activity? This is, again, the hard problem of consciousness. Emergence in general refers to the phenomenon where a system exhibits properties that its individual components do not have. Water molecules individually don't have the property of wetness, but a collection of them does. Similarly, individual neurons aren't conscious, but a network of billions of them is. But consciousness feels different from wetness. It's not just a collective property, but a subjective experience. Some philosophers and scientists remain open to the possibility that consciousness involves something we don't yet understand, some principle or property not fully captured by current physics and neuroscience. This doesn't necessarily mean a traditional soul, but it allows for the idea that materialism might not be the whole story. Others argue that even if consciousness is entirely physical, the concept of the soul can remain meaningful as a way of talking about the value and dignity of persons, the sense of sacred individuality, the hope for transcendence or connection with something greater. On this view, the soul is not a scientific entity, but a religious or philosophical one, affirming truths about meaning and value that science doesn't address. Interestingly, some modern theologians and religious thinkers have embraced a more physicalist understanding of human nature, one that doesn't require a separate soul. They argue that the biblical view, particularly in Hebrew scriptures, was never dualistic in the Greek sense. Humans are embodied beings, and what Christianity promises is not the survival of a disembodied soul, but the resurrection of the body, a transformed, renewed physical existence. This view aligns better with neuroscience while still affirming religious hope. It says, yes, we are physical beings, entirely dependent on our brains for consciousness and identity. But this doesn't preclude the possibility that God could recreate or transform us in a future life, preserving identity not through an immortal soul, but through divine remembrance and action. From a purely scientific standpoint, the question of an immortal soul remains beyond adjudication. Science can study the brain, describe how it produces consciousness and personality, show that damage to the brain disrupts these functions. But it can't tell you whether there's something else, some essential you that persists beyond death. What science does suggest is that if there is a soul, it's intimately connected to the brain during life. Whatever the soul might be, it doesn't operate independently of neurons. Your thoughts, memories, emotions, decisions, all depend on the physical state of your brain. If there's a soul, it acts through the brain, is expressed through the brain, and is inseparable from the brain's functioning during your earthly life. This might be unsatisfying if you were hoping for clear answers. The soul remains what it has always been, a concept at the boundary of the knowable, a way of pointing to the mystery of consciousness and identity, a symbol of human dignity and the longing for transcendence. Perhaps what matters most is not whether you have a soul in some metaphysical sense, but how you live, the meaning you create, the connections you forge, the awareness you cultivate. Whether you conceive of yourself as a soul inhabiting a body, or as a body that has produced a mind, or as a process of consciousness without any substantial self at all, the existential questions remain the same. Who are you? What will you do with the brief time you have? How will you treat others? What will you leave behind? Memory, consciousness, identity. These are the things we can study and experience. They arise from the brain, shaped by genetics and environment, woven from the experiences you've accumulated. They're fragile, dependent on the continued functioning of delicate neural machinery. And yet, from this fragile physical substrate, something remarkable emerges: the sense of being a self, the capacity for love and wonder, the ability to ask why. Call it soul or mind or consciousness or simply life. The name matters less than the reality. You are here, aware, capable of reflection and choice. You have this moment and the memories that connect it to other moments, and the imagination to envision what might come next. That's no small thing. That's everything. Memory across the lifespan. The evolving self. Let's now consider how memory, and therefore the self, changes across the arc of a human life. Because you are not the same person you were as a child, nor will you be the same in old age. Your memories accumulate. Some fade. Your perspective shifts. And through it all, there's both continuity and change. In infancy, the capacity for memory is present but limited. Even newborns can recognize their mother's voice, showing that some form of memory functions from the start. As the brain develops, babies learn rapidly, forming memories of faces, objects, routines. But these early memories are not the same as the autobiographical memories adults form. Young children lack the cognitive structures for encoding and retrieving episodic memories in the narrative form that adults use. The hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, crucial for autobiographical memory, are still maturing. Language is developing. The sense of self as a continuous entity existing through time is just beginning to emerge. Most people have no explicit memories from before the age of 2 or 3, and memories from before age 6 or 7 are sparse and fragmentary. This is childhood amnesia, one of the most robust findings in memory research. The reasons for it are debated, but it likely involves a combination of brain immaturity, lack of narrative structure, and the way early memories are encoded differently than later ones. Interestingly, some research suggests that very young children can form and retrieve episodic memories, but these memories are not retained into adulthood. It's as if the memory system gets rebooted at some point, and the earliest memories don't make it through the transition. As children grow and develop language, they begin to form memories that will last. They start to construct a narrative self, a life story. This process is heavily influenced by the way parents talk with children about past events. Parents who engage in elaborative reminiscing, asking open-ended questions, encouraging the child to add details, help the child develop richer autobiographical memories and a more coherent sense of personal history. By adolescence, memory is functioning at peak efficiency. The teenage brain is highly plastic, capable of rapid learning and encoding. And adolescence is a time of intense experience, of identity exploration, first loves, new freedoms, significant transitions. These experiences are encoded deeply, with emotional intensity, and they become central to the life story. This is why the reminiscence bump exists. If you ask an older adult to recall important memories from their life, a disproportionate number will come from adolescence and early adulthood, roughly ages 15 to 30. Neuroscience suggests several reasons for this. The brain's encoding mechanisms are at their most efficient during this period. Experiences are novel and therefore memorable, and this is the time when identity is being actively formed, when the narrative self is crystallizing, so the memories from this period become particularly significant. Young adulthood continues to be a time of rich memory formation, but as people enter middle age, the nature of memory changes. Routines become more established. New experiences are less frequent. The present becomes more like the past, which means less is distinctive and memorable. When you do the same thing day after day, the individual instances blend together, leaving only a generic sense of the routine. This is partly why time seems to accelerate as you age. Looking back over a year, if it was filled with familiar routines, there are fewer distinct memories to retrieve. The year seems to have passed quickly because there's less memory content marking its passage. In contrast, a year filled with new experiences, travel, significant changes, leaves more memory markers and feels longer in retrospect. There's also a shift in what people remember and how they evaluate their memories. Older adults tend to show a positivity bias, recalling pleasant memories more readily than unpleasant ones. This isn't just a matter of forgetting the bad times. It's an active shift in attention and evaluation. Older adults seem to prioritize emotional regulation, focusing on the positive, letting go of grudges and regrets. Some research suggests this positivity effect is related to the awareness of limited time. When you know your future is finite, you become more selective about how you spend your time and what you dwell on mentally. You focus on what matters, on relationships and meaningful activities, and you let go of the rest. Your memories reflect this shift, becoming more focused on connection and contentment. But aging also brings challenges to memory. The hippocampus, like much of the brain, can shrink with age. Neural processing slows. The mechanisms of encoding and retrieval become less efficient. It becomes harder to form new memories, especially ones that require effortful processing. Names become elusive. You walk into a room and forget why you came. Where did you put your keys? These age-related changes are normal, though they can be frustrating. They don't usually interfere significantly with daily life, but in some people, memory decline accelerates into mild cognitive impairment or dementia. Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia, involves the progressive death of neurons, starting in the hippocampus and spreading through the cortex. As Alzheimer's advances, recent memories are lost first. You might forget a conversation from an hour ago, but still vividly recall events from childhood. This pattern reflects the way memories are consolidated and stored. Recent memories, still dependent on the hippocampus, are lost when that structure degenerates. Older memories, fully consolidated into cortical networks, persist longer. Eventually, though, even old memories fade. Familiar faces become unrecognizable. The person may not remember their own life history, their career, their family. The self, so dependent on memory, begins to unravel. In the late stages of Alzheimer's, there's a tragic loss of personhood, a disappearance of the identity that memory sustained. For families, this is devastating. The person is still physically present, but the personality, the shared history, the recognition, all the things that made them them, are gone. It's a slow goodbye, a gradual erasure of self. This tragic condition underscores how much we depend on memory for identity. Without it, the continuity of self is broken. There's still consciousness, still experience in the moment, but no connection to the past, no sense of a coherent life story. But even in the absence of disease, memory shapes the experience of aging. Older adults often engage in what's called life review, looking back over their lives, trying to make sense of it all, to integrate experiences into a meaningful whole. This can be a fulfilling process, finding coherence and acceptance, appreciating the journey, reminiscing with others, sharing stories, maintaining social connections. These activities help keep memory active and contribute to well-being. Memories are not just private possessions. They're social, shared with others, told and retold, refined in the telling. They connect you to family, to friends, to your community. Throughout the lifespan, memory is both stable and dynamic. Certain core memories, especially those encoded with strong emotion, can persist for decades, vivid and detailed. Others fade quickly, leaving only traces or disappearing entirely. And all are subject to reinterpretation as you change, as your perspective evolves, as you understand your life differently. The self you are at 80 is built on the memories of the person you were at 20, but it's not the same self. You've changed, learned, adapted. Some experiences have faded, while others have grown in significance. The story you tell about your life at 80 is different from the one you would have told at 20, not just because there's more to tell, but because you tell it differently, with different emphasis, different meanings. This evolving narrative is one of the great privileges of a long life. You get to see how things turned out, to understand earlier events in light of what came later, to appreciate connections and patterns that weren't visible at the time. And yet, in another sense, you remain the same person throughout. There's a continuity of identity that persists despite all the changes. The thread that runs through your life is memory, the accumulation of experiences, and the ongoing process of making sense of them. You are not a fixed self with a fixed history. You are a process, a story being written and rewritten, a pattern of memory and intention and action that persists through time, changing while remaining recognizably you. Time, memory, and mortality. The weight of finite days. We've talked about memory and time as mechanisms, as brain processes, as psychological phenomena. But there's an existential dimension we must acknowledge. You are not just remembering things and perceiving time. You are moving through time toward an inevitable end. You are mortal. This awareness of mortality, the knowledge that you will die, may be unique to humans among all living things. Other animals may fear death in the moment, but they don't carry the constant background knowledge of their own eventual non-existence. You do. From childhood onward, you understand that life is finite, that the future is limited, that one day there will be no more moments, no more memories. This awareness profoundly shapes human psychology. It's part of what makes the present precious, but it also creates anxiety, dread, a sense of urgency or futility. Different philosophical and religious traditions have tried to come to terms with mortality in different ways, but all acknowledge its centrality to the human condition. Memory plays a complex role in our relationship with mortality. On one hand, memory is a form of continuity, a way of stretching your existence backward, of making your life more than just the present moment. Your memories are proof that you've lived, that things happened, that you were there. On the other hand, memory confronts you with loss. You remember people who are gone, times that won't return, versions of yourself that no longer exist. Memory can be painful, a reminder that everything changes, that nothing lasts. And then there's the fear of being forgotten. For many people, the thought of dying is bearable as long as they will be remembered, as long as they leave something behind. Legacy becomes important, whether through children, creative works, contributions to the community, simply being remembered fondly by those you loved. This desire to be remembered reflects a wish for a kind of immortality. You know your body will die. But if your memory lives on in others, there's a sense in which you persist. Your influence continues. Your story is told. You're not entirely gone. But memories in others' minds are also fragile. As those who knew you die, direct memories of you disappear. Perhaps you're remembered for a generation or two, and then you fade into the undifferentiated past, just a name on a family tree, if that. This can feel like a second death, more final than the physical one. To be completely forgotten is to be erased from history, as if you never were. Of course, a few people are remembered much longer, famous figures whose names and deeds survive in historical records and cultural memory, but even that is not true immortality. Civilizations fall, languages change, records are lost. On a long enough timeline, all human memory will be gone. This might sound bleak, and it can be. The awareness of mortality and the ultimate futility of all human endeavor can lead to nihilism, a sense that nothing matters. But it can also lead to the opposite conclusion. If time is limited, then it's precious. Every moment is irreplaceable. The relationships you have, the experiences you choose, the meaning you make, these matter because they're all you have. There's a concept in philosophy called memento mori, remember you will die. It's not meant to be morbid, but to clarify priorities, to remind you not to waste time on what doesn't matter, to live intentionally and fully. Memory and time intersect here in a profound way. You are aware of time passing because you remember the past and anticipate the future. This temporal consciousness is both a gift and a burden. It allows for planning, for learning from experience, for savoring the present by contrasting it with memory and anticipation. But it also creates a kind of suffering unique to humans. You can regret the past, wish you'd done things differently, be haunted by memories of mistakes or losses. You can dread the future, worry about what's coming, fear the unknown. And even the present can be colored by these temporal concerns, preventing you from being fully engaged in the now. Spiritual traditions, particularly Buddhism, teach that much of this suffering arises from our relationship to time, from clinging to the past or grasping at the future, from resisting the impermanence of all things. The practice of mindfulness is, in part, an attempt to ground yourself in the present moment, to experience what is without the overlay of memory and anticipation. This doesn't mean eliminating memory or planning, but it means not letting them dominate, not living entirely in the past or future, finding a balance where you can appreciate the now while also learning from before and preparing for what's next. Memory, in this context, is a tool, not a prison. Yes, you carry your history with you, and it shapes who you are. But you don't have to be trapped by it. You can reinterpret old memories, let go of grudges, find new meanings in old experiences. The past is not fixed, at least not in your mind. How you remember it, what you take from it, is at least partly within your control. Similarly, your relationship with mortality can shift. You can live in constant fear and denial of death, refusing to think about it, filling every moment with distraction. Or you can acknowledge it, integrate it into your understanding of life, let it inform your choices without dominating them. Many people who come close to death, who survive serious illness or accident, report a shift in perspective. Afterward, they appreciate life more, worry less about trivial things, focus on what truly matters. The awareness of mortality, fully accepted, can be clarifying. But you don't have to almost die to achieve this. You can choose, deliberately, to remember that your time is limited, that this day, this moment, will not come again. You can ask yourself, am I spending my time in ways that align with my values? Am I nurturing the relationships that matter? Am I paying attention, truly present, or am I sleepwalking through my life? These are questions worth returning to regularly because it's easy to forget. The urgency fades, routines take over. You get caught up in the trivial and the immediate, and days turn into weeks, weeks into years, and suddenly you wonder where the time went. Memory can serve as a reminder. When you look back and realize how quickly time has passed, it can be a wake-up call. Don't let more time slip away unappreciated. Don't defer the things that matter. Life is happening now, not someday. At the same time, there's a paradox. If you're constantly aware of time passing, constantly anxious about making the most of every moment, you can't relax and enjoy anything. The pressure to seize the day can become its own form of suffering. Perhaps the balance is in cultivating a gentle awareness. Yes, time is passing, and you won't be here forever. But that's okay. That's the nature of things. You do what you can. You live as fully as you're able. You connect, create, experience. And you accept that it's enough, that you are enough, that the time you have, however long or short, is sufficient to live a meaningful life. Meaning doesn't require immortality. In fact, the finite nature of life may be what gives it meaning. If you had all the time in the world, would anything matter? Choices carry weight because they exclude other choices. Time is valuable because it's limited. Relationships are precious because they're temporary. Your memories, too, are rendered poignant by impermanence. You treasure certain memories because you know you can't relive those moments. You hold on to them, revisit them, knowing they're all you have of a time that's gone. And yet, in a strange way, memory does grant a kind of immortality, not literal, but experiential. When you remember your grandmother, she's present in your mind, alive again in memory. She continues to influence you, to shape your values and choices. She's not gone, not entirely. This is the form of immortality we can actually achieve, living on in the memories of those who loved us, in the values we imparted, in the ways we touched lives. It's not eternal, but it's something. It extends our existence beyond our own death, making us part of something larger, a chain of connection stretching back into the past and forward into the future. And perhaps that's enough, not to live forever, but to live well, to be remembered with love, to leave the world slightly better, to have been part of the vast, interconnected web of human experience. Mortality is not a problem to be solved. It's a condition to be accepted. And in accepting it, in making peace with the fact that your time is finite, you may find a deeper appreciation for the time you have, a greater willingness to live fully, to love generously, to be present. Memory reminds you of what you've had and what you've lost. Time moves you inexorably forward, and mortality gives it all urgency and meaning. Together, they create the texture of human life, bittersweet, beautiful, fleeting, and utterly, irreplaceably precious. The interconnection of all three, weaving memory, time, and soul. So we've journeyed through memory, through time perception, through consciousness and self-awareness, through the concept of soul and the awareness of mortality. Now it's time to weave these threads together, to see how they form a unified picture of what it means to be human. Memory, time, and the self are not separate phenomena. They're aspects of a single, integrated process. You can't have one without the others. Consider memory. To have memory, you must have time. Memories are inherently temporal. They're about events that happened in the past, stored in the present, potentially retrieved in the future. The very concept of memory requires a temporal framework, a before and after, a then and now. And memory creates your subjective sense of time. Without memory, there's no past, only an eternal present. Your sense of time's passage is constructed by comparing the present to remembered pasts, by noticing change, by positioning events in sequence. Time, as you experience it, is a product of memory. The self, too, is inseparable from memory and time. Your identity is built from autobiographical memories, from the narrative you construct about your life. Without memory, there's no continuous self, no I that persists through time. The self is a temporal entity, existing only as a pattern of continuity across moments. And the self is what does the remembering, what experiences time, what is conscious. Consciousness, that irreducible fact of awareness, is always someone's consciousness. There's no experiencing without an experiencer, no subjective perspective without a subject. These three, memory, time, and self, form a triadic structure at the heart of human existence. Each implies the others. Each is necessary for the others to exist. Now, where does the soul fit into this picture? If we use soul to mean the experiential, subjective aspect of being, the what it's like to be you, then the soul is inseparable from this triad. It's not a separate thing that has memory, experiences time, and possesses a self. It is the having, the experiencing, the possessing. It's the process, the activity, the ongoing flow of conscious existence. In this sense, the soul is not an entity, but an event. It's what happens when a brain, shaped by evolution and experience, generates the complex, integrated pattern of activity we call consciousness. It's the emergence of subjectivity from the objective workings of neurons. This doesn't diminish the soul. If anything, it makes it more wondrous. That mere matter, atoms and molecules, could organize itself into a structure capable of awareness, of memory, of self-reflection, of love and wonder and the appreciation of beauty. This is the miracle. You are matter that knows it exists. You are the universe looking at itself, experiencing itself, asking questions about itself. That's as close to magic as anything in the natural world. The soul, then, is not separate from the body. It's what the body does when it's organized in a particular way, when it has a brain with billions of interconnected neurons, when those neurons fire in patterns shaped by experience, when the system as a whole achieves a level of complexity and integration that produces consciousness. And this soul, this emergent property of neural activity, is fundamentally temporal. It exists through time, changing moment by moment, sustained by the constant activity of the brain. It's a flame, not a stone, a process that must be continually fueled, or it goes out. When you die, when the brain ceases to function, the soul in this sense ends. There's no evidence that consciousness continues without neural activity. The self, so dependent on memory, on the brain's ability to maintain patterns across time, cannot persist when those patterns cease. This is a stark truth, and for many, a difficult one. But it's also strangely beautiful. It means that your existence is precious precisely because it's fleeting. You are a brief flare of awareness in the vastness of an unconscious cosmos. You're here for a moment, conscious and alive, and then you're gone. But while you're here, you are part of something larger. Your memories connect you to other people, to shared experiences, to a culture and history. Your actions ripple outward, affecting others, shaping the future in small ways. You're a node in a network, a thread in a web, a note in a symphony, and the meanings you create, the love you feel, the beauty you appreciate, these are real. They don't require eternity to be valid. They're complete in themselves, meaningful because they're experienced, because they matter to you and to those you share them with. Memory ensures that nothing is truly lost, at least not immediately. What you experience becomes part of you, changes you, shapes your future. And when you share your memories with others, they become part of the collective story, the ongoing narrative of human life. Time moves in one direction, forward, irreversible. But through memory, you can revisit the past, not literally, but experientially. You can bring forward the love you felt, the lessons you learned, the beauty you witnessed. In this way, the past is not dead. It lives in you, in your present self, in your memories. The self, that sense of I that persists, is both stable and changing. There's continuity, a thread of identity running through your life. But you're not the same person you were years ago, nor will you be the same person years from now. You're a process, a becoming, a story that's still being written. And the soul, if we retain that language, is this process. It's the ongoing activity of consciousness, memory, and self, integrated into a unified experience of being someone, of being you. In this understanding, there's no sharp distinction between mind and body, between soul and brain. They're aspects of the same thing, different ways of describing the same reality. The brain is what you are from the outside, the objective, material structure. The mind or soul is what you are from the inside, the subjective, experiential stream. Neither description is complete without the other. The objective account, neurons and synapses and neurotransmitters, explains how it works but misses what it's like. The subjective account, thoughts and feelings and memories, captures the experience but doesn't explain the mechanisms. Together, they tell the full story. You are a biological organism with a brain that generates consciousness. You experience yourself as a self, a subject of experience, because that's what it's like to be a brain doing what brains do. This integration of perspectives, objective and subjective, scientific and experiential, is perhaps the deepest insight we can reach about human nature. We are both object and subject, body and mind, matter and meaning. And we are temporal beings, moving through time, shaped by the past through memory, orienting toward the future through anticipation, existing in a present that's always slipping away, always becoming past, always being replaced by new moments. This is the human condition, to be aware, to remember, to anticipate, to know that we're finite and to live anyway, to create meaning despite impermanence, to love knowing we'll lose, to build knowing it will fall. There's a poignancy to this, a melancholy beauty, but there's also courage. To live fully, knowing it will end, requires a kind of bravery. To invest in relationships, to pursue dreams, to care deeply about things that won't last. This is an affirmation of life in the face of its own transience. And memory, time, and the self are the tools you have to navigate this existence. Memory lets you learn, lets you carry forward what you've gained. Time gives structure, creates urgency, makes moments unrepeatable and therefore precious. The self provides continuity, a center of experience, a perspective from which to engage with the world. Together, they allow you to be human, to have a life that's yours, a story that's unique, an existence that matters. And that, perhaps, is what the soul truly is. Not some ghostly essence, but this very experience of being alive, aware, connected to the past through memory, moving into the future through time, experiencing it all as a self, as someone, as you. Conclusion: the beauty of our ephemeral existence. We've come a long way together tonight. We've explored the neuroscience of memory formation, the brain's construction of time, the mysteries of consciousness and self-awareness, the ancient concept of the soul and its relationship to modern understanding, the arc of memory across a lifespan, the weight of mortality, and the deep interconnection of memory, time, and self. If your mind is swimming with information and ideas, that's okay. Let it all settle. Let the pieces find their places in your own understanding. What I hope you take away is not just facts about the brain, though we've covered many. I hope you take away a sense of wonder at the fact that you exist at all, that you're conscious, aware, capable of remembering and anticipating, of reflecting on your own existence. You are an improbable thing, a brief pattern of organization in a universe that tends toward disorder. You're a collection of atoms that became alive, that became aware, that can ponder its own nature. Your memories, fallible as they are the foundation of who you are. They connect moments into a life, experiences into a story. They're not perfect records, but they don't need to be. They're yours, and they shape you. Your sense of time, subjective and malleable, is what allows you to navigate experience, to learn from the past and plan for the future. It creates the structure within which your life unfolds. Yourself, that elusive sense of being someone, is constructed from memory and time, from neural activity and experience. It's not an illusion, but it's not a simple thing either. It's a process, a becoming, a story you tell and retell, refining and revising as you go. And your soul, whether you conceive of it in religious or poetic or purely naturalistic terms, is the fact of your consciousness, the undeniable reality that there's something it's like to be you. This consciousness is the greatest mystery, the hardest problem, the most intimate and yet most inexplicable aspect of existence. Science can describe the brain, map its regions, trace its connections, measure its activity. But it can't fully capture what it's like to be you, to see through your eyes, to feel with your heart, to think your thoughts. That inner world, that subjective experience, is yours alone. Others can't directly access it, can't know it as you do. And yet, through language and art and shared experience, you can communicate something of it, can connect with others who also have inner worlds, who also wonder and remember and feel. In the end, what we've explored tonight is the nature of human existence at its most fundamental. You are a being who exists in time, who remembers, who is aware. This combination of traits, this particular organization of matter into memory, time, and consciousness, is what makes you human. It's fragile. It depends on the continued functioning of your brain. It will end when you die. But for now, for this brief moment, it's here. You're here. And that's extraordinary. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, or as you continue your day, carry with you an appreciation for the marvel of your own existence. Remember that you are not just a body moving through space. You are a self moving through time, accumulating experiences, forming memories, building a life. You are matter that has become aware of itself. You are the universe contemplating its own existence. You are, for a little while, conscious and alive. Make the most of it. Remember well, live fully, love deeply, be present, because this moment, this one right now, is all we ever truly have. The past lives only in memory. The future exists only in imagination. The present is where life happens. where you are actually alive, actually experiencing, actually being. So be here, be aware, be grateful for the gift of consciousness, of memory, of time, and know that in some small way, you matter. Your life has meaning, not because it lasts forever, but because it is. You are part of the great unfolding of existence, a brief verse in an endless poem, a single note in an infinite song. And that is enough. That is more than enough. Thank you for spending this time with me, for exploring these deep questions, for thinking and feeling and being present to these ideas. If this conversation has given you something to ponder, something to appreciate, something to wonder about, then I'm glad. Consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows us to continue creating these explorations, to keep asking the big questions, to keep marveling at the mysteries of existence. Until next time, be well. Remember beautifully, experience deeply, and live, truly live, the life that is yours. Good night.